March 16th, 2020. That was day one of the COVID shutdown for me and my family, and specifically me in the health and fitness industry. That was the day the gym I was working at in Ocean City, Maryland shut down. And we didn't know for how long at the time. It ended up being for a little more than 3 months, going on 4 months. But at that point, I became unemployed for the first time in my adult life. First time I'd ever gone on unemployment. That was a pretty big shock to the system for me. But it was a blessing too. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that the COVID outbreak was a blessing, because we know how much tragedy was involved, how horrible of a disease it was for so many people and so many families across the country, across the globe. But for me specifically, it forced me to get off my butt. It forced me to stop thinking about starting a business. And if you remember from the last episode, I would think about it, talk myself out of it. And then I continue down that rabbit hole, on that hamster wheel. But when the shutdown happened, I had a couple things. No paycheck and a whole lot of time on my hands. So I had to do something. I had to make a decision. And for me, it started with creating a gym in my own garage. We were living in Berlin, Maryland, just outside Ocean City at the time. And I borrowed some equipment from the gym that I was working at the time, since no one else was using them, and just started piecing things together. And then as time went by, I started, getting some of my own pieces of equipment in there and started filling in where I needed to. And initially it was just for me and my family, just an opportunity to get outside the house. We had a detached garage at the time, just to get outside and do something constructive. In this case, get a good sweat on, get a good workout in, just to do something rather than sitting around the apartment, and, eating pizza and drinking beer, so which probably would have ended up happening if I hadn't done that. Let me say this for this. I couldn't have gotten to this episode at this particular time. I couldn't have planned this any better. If I had tried, and spoiler alert, I didn't try. It just kind of worked out this way. Our family is on the back end of battling about with COVID that's kind of run roughshod through our house this past week or so. So it made sense to be talking about a period of time that really started to change my life for the better. Like I said, it certainly negatively impacted so many people's lives. But for me, it forced me to make a choice. It forced me to stop thinking, which was my biggest problem. I would get in my own way by overthinking things. I couldn't get out of my own head because I was overthinking things. And it forced me to take action. So I create this gym. And then I start thinking to myself, well, I'm in here continuing to get in better shape. I've got, my 2 oldest boys in here as well, my youngest boy in there as well, to, again, give us something constructive to do while we're waiting for whenever this country of ours was going to reopen. At the time, we didn't have a clue. I said for our gym, it ended up being 3-4 months, but it could have been a lot longer, could have been a lot less. We didn't know at the time. So I thought to myself, well, why can't I start training my own clients? I have a space here. I wasn't parking a car in it. We didn't have a whole lot of stuff to store in it. So I could certainly turn it into a quality garage gym and be able to train people out of it. Now, certainly in the beginning, during the shutdown, I couldn't train people in person, but I also started working in an online capacity, starting to train clients that I currently had, because I wanted them to keep going. I didn't want, just like I didn't want for me, the COVID shutdown to shut down things for me in my life and shut down any momentum that I had been building through working in the health and fitness industry. I didn't want the COVID shutdown to shut down the momentum my clients had generated based on the work we had done prior to that, in that spring of 2020. So I started training a few of them online, just on Zoom, much like I'm talking to you now. You know, they'd be on the other end of the camera and we'd be getting workouts in just like we would if we were in person. So it got me thinking as well, what if I started training some people, more and more people online? What if I could, provide the best of both worlds, in person to those who needed that and virtual to those who were good with that? So it forced me to really start figuring out, all right, what are the steps that I need to take to make that happen? And it wasn't easy because, again, like I've said several times in this series before, I don't have a business background, or at least at the time I didn't. I didn't have a degree in business from some fancy school, and I never opened a business before, never was really in a management position per se, in the newspaper industry. I was always a W-2 employee. But I started to gain some semblance of management experience at the gym I was working at, small boutique gym, a small staff. So we all did pretty much everything. So I was starting to gain some experience in that regard, how to, run a business, how not to run a business, how to deal with customers and clients and so forth, how to do sales. I'd never been in a sales job before that, so it was completely new to me as well. So I was learning on the job, and to me, that's the best kind of experience you can get. So I started piecing together what I needed to do. Started, getting some guidance from people I certainly respect and admire and appreciate learning from. And I just started doing it. I mean, was it perfect? Absolutely not. Was it great? My clients probably would say it was. They would at least lie to me and say it was. But I was doing a lot of things wrong, but at least I was doing something. And I think ultimately, you've heard me say many times before on social media and so forth, taking imperfect action. And that's what I did. I did what I thought was right. Whether it was right or wrong at the time, I didn't know. But I did what I thought was right. And that allowed me to take steps forward. And even if I took a step back, I learned from it, made the adjustments that I needed to make to the plan I had originally put in place, and then moved forward. And I started realizing that, I could help a lot of people. Just like, and especially in the virtual world, I could help a lot more people. And there was an unlimited amount of opportunity there because, let's face it, while COVID was going on, COVID wasn't going to keep me from being able to work with people virtually. So I started, like I said, I continued doing that, started gaining more experience with that, because it takes a little bit getting used to. I mean, my clients will tell you the same thing. It took a little getting used to, those that transitioned from in-person to virtual when I moved from Maryland to North Carolina a little over a year ago. So it's definitely a transition from one platform, if you will, to the other. But it allowed me to, to really learn more about the industry itself, learn from that perspective, really gain knowledge through trying different things, making mistakes and learning from them, and learning what to do correctly after making those mistakes. So it was really an opportunity to show myself that I could do it, even if I was really on the ground floor, and I was. It was an opportunity to really show that I could do it. I'll be honest, that thought has crossed my mind over this past week or so, having battled COVID. It's the first time I've encountered it. I've managed to escape its grasp for over 3 years. It's like I said earlier, it's run roughshod through our house over this past week or so. Thankfully, we're on the plus side of it here. Thankfully, and we're getting there. I'm starting to feel better, as you can see. Ratty t-shirt, hat, full beard or almost full beard. I haven't shaved, and I haven't shaved. You haven't even shaved my head in probably a week or two, because I just haven't felt up to it. So I figure if I'm going to feel like crap, I may as well look the part too. But it also reminded me of a period of time where a transition took place, ready or not, and I wasn't ready for it, because if I had been, I would have done it a lot sooner. But it kind of kicked me in the ass, if you will. I mean, it's kicked me in the ass over the past week. It definitely knocked me on my butt, especially for 2-3 days. And now it reminds me of, it really gave me a proverbial kick in the backside, going on with over 3 years ago, telling me for me to take action. So the next steps after that were up to me. I had to take control of it. And Lord knows, just coaching those few clients online and preparing that gym to coach clients in person, man, those were only the first few steps of a lot of steps that continue to this day.